It is New Year's Eve. I am sitting in my childhood bedroom in my family's home in rural North Carolina. My son is laying on the floor with the two dogs, and I am on a set of convertible cushions on the ground, the only furniture in the room. Our sparsely decorated Christmas tree is in the corner, and the piney smell of the Fraser fir just barely masks the faint dank smell of mold pervading the air. Despite being New Year's, I am in no rush to let go of the Christmas tree or the year. In fact, I am not looking forward to 2025 at all and have the hope that 2024 is not yet done with me. The ominous crack of thunder resounds over the sound of relentless rain. This is not how I envisioned my life at 42, at any age even. The spiritual awakening that I went through recently felt more like a psychotic break and was exacerbated by a chemical and financial instability. I felt as if I was both watching and being watched at the same time. I was observing my life implode and was participating in both its brutal demolition and its attempted resuscitation. Mocked by God, every effort to keep my life from unraveling further, in effect, made it worse, and any attempts to ameliorate the situation was humbled by my inability to do anything but submit further to the futility of the situation. Every effort to mitigate the negative effects of one thing only led to the degradation of another. My mental health declined severely, exponentially, profoundly. The narcolepsy medication that I had been taking made me anxious. To offset the anxiety, I was prescribed an antidepressant, the cocktail of which made me believe that the world was on a slant, and that my legs were actually rickety wooden stilts, uneven in length and taper. Even my most basic executive functioning felt awkward and burdensome. I went days without brushing my teeth, and when I did it was half-hearted, chewing on the toothbrush on one side of my mouth and staring blankly at my vague likeness in the mirror. My hair was perpetually pulled taut in a severe chignon, which gave me the appearance of baldness. Tears seemed to erupt and stream from every orifice and pore of my body. I often found myself sitting on the toilet, naked thighs splayed wide to allow tears and snot to land unobstructedly into the toilet, from where my face floated somewhere above, unanchored to any real fixed place on my upper body or in reality. What would possibly have been a welcome time of introspection felt like an involuntary violation by some unholy ghost. My body, like the rest of my life, was a hostile battleground, sandwiched somewhere between Big Pharma and Big Brother. My soul buckled under the pressure to perform human, and I succumbed to the possibility that perhaps I was actually less than, especially given the degraded quality of life that I have had to accept and endure after finding myself homeless and returning to the roach and rodent infested home of my youth. Staying sober has felt unnecessary in my derelict state, yet I have been determined to do so, lest my situation lead to shame and an ever deepening downward spiral. Devoid of toxins, my life felt disorganized at first. It was different from the fragmented reality I found myself in during the initial stages of spiritual psychosis, in which I was still attempting to remain committed to my earlier healing methods of holy miracle water, aka wine, and psychedelics. Psychosis felt more like watching the world whiz by out of a window with warped, wavy glass, whilst hurtling through a tornado on the way to crash land on a planet in a distant universe, only to find that the many-paned vessel I was traveling in had landed squarely on top of the leader of a guerrilla group of insurrectionists, and I became drafted into the opposing army of the establishment, tasked to retrieve the golden orb of truth from a deaf oracle at the edge of time before the last needle falls from the sacred cactus on the sandy mound of mourning. The disorientation and gradual disillusionment from sudden sobriety upon reaching my childhood home was as if a limb was torn from me, and I found myself teetering off balance, needing to recalibrate and redistribute the weight of my healing around a different pivot point. The sheen of psychosis had dulled, and all that was left was massive amounts of confusion, anger, and despair. The lyrics to Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads echoed faintly in my head, and though I did not crave a drink or smoke, I did feel as if something was missing. I am a child again, I feel. Regressed and now facing painful aspects of my arrested development conversely, to some degree. I do not feel as if I have regressed enough. I am unready for the resolutions and expectations that a new year will bring. The age of child I find myself is one that is still very much aware of having been poorly loved and in constant neglect, and that has had to adapt herself accordingly. I feel that if I hold on to 2024 long enough, perhaps I will regress even further to actual infancy. A baby whose needs must be lovingly tended to. A baby who is not yet aware of the many abuses that the world can bring, starting with those brought upon her by the very ones who profess to love her most. A baby now in need of a bottle of a different type. Only then will I be able to fully embrace a new year and be reborn into who I was destined, nay, promised to become. No, I do not want the ties that resolutions have to correcting past failures and mistakes. I have none, for I was just a wee bairn, a clean slate diapered, dimpled, and newly born in 2025.